Morning, everybody. It's Gareth here from Pod Pit, and I'm very fortunate this morning to be joined by my sister-in-law, Vicky Damerell.
Morning.
She's going to be talking to us in more detail about data, in business. So the reason I wanted to get Vicky on today to talk about this is I have lots of conversations with my clients about digital marketing and how they're going to conquer the world with a MailChimp list of less than 500 people on it. And I think data is a very misunderstood area in business, and the importance of good quality data is something that needs to be discussed more. For example, I had a client the other day get in touch with me and discussed an idea of some data capture on a website that they were then going to email a link out to their existing clients to get them all to sign up so they could get a free mug. And I said, that's a complete and utter waste of time, because if you've already got them on a list, why do you need to email them again to get them to sign up to get a free mug? You could just, if they're already engaged customers, you could just send them the mug. So, and I think that there's a misunderstanding about data, and I think that's worthwhile talking about this in more detail and sort of dispelling some myths. So Vicky's going to talk to us today. So I'm going to pass over to her now, and she can introduce herself and her business.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Gareth. So, yeah, I work for a company called Market Location, a data owner who owns data and resells it out to the market. I've worked for the group for a few years. So I've also been working in the digital marketing space within web development, SEO, Google Ads. So understanding how to get out to the market and find your right customer. And I've very nicely fallen into the data side of it. You know, you do think that the most important thing is my website, my brand, my content. Absolutely it is. That message needs to be correct. But if you're not pushing the message out to the right people, then who's seeing it? Back in the day, it was very much a kind of spray and pray kind of attitude to data. It was kind of, I've got a massive pot of data, I've got 100,000 records sat on my database, and I'm just going to email all these people and then let's see what sticks. One, you can't do that anymore. The GDPR guys would have a field day. But also it's not targeted. It doesn't really give you a good understanding of what is the right opportunity for you, how much opportunity there is. One thing I would say is, when you're looking at the data that you hold currently or the targets that you're setting for the year, what does that look like? If you've got I'll give you an example. If you've got a sales guy who lives in central London and he has an opportunity, you think he could go and get you, I don't know, 100 grand's worth of business. And then you've got a guy that sits down in Cornwall, and you think, yeah, he can get me 100 grand's worth of business. How do you know that? How do you know what the opportunity is? How many people in that area meet your criteria? So it's really important to kind of understand what's your target audience for the area that you live in, you work in, your industry, the type of job titles that you might want to be talking to. If you might just want to talk to head of IT companies where they've got an IT director, they've got 500 staff, they specialize in certain market sectors. So you want to know what your opportunity is. So unless you know what that looks like, you can't start to build out targets for the year, content for the year, campaign plans for the year. I could go on.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying there is data is very important, but you really need to know your demographic. So data starts with the demographic. That's the nuts and bolts of it.
Absolutely. It starts with the demographic and what that looks like. So we can look at your existing customers. That's a good place to start. Obviously, if you're a new business, you'll have an idea of the types of companies you want to go after. We can look at kind of what your competitors have been doing and who are they targeting. Maybe we can start thinking outside the box, having conversations around what type of people should we be contacting. So yeah, definitely thinking about who should I be targeting is without doubt probably my very first important question around data.
Yeah. So when you talk about data, but what is data? So once you've got your demographic, you spoke about like looking for specific job roles, specific sort of levels of seniority in a specific area. Like what does that look like once you've got that? You know, how does it arrive with a business?
Yeah, so we could be talking, we could say, right, Vicky, I want Salisbury, and I want all the businesses in Salisbury to have more than 20 staff that meet this demographic. And we would supply that to you in a CSV file or Excel file, or upload it straight into your CRM system. There's lots of platforms out there. You could be using something like MailChimp for email marketing, or Campaign Monitor, or you could have Dynamics for a proper CRM, Salesforce, whatever that might look like. So we can upload that data into your platform with our lead source associated with it. And it is important to, wherever your data is coming from, to put a lead source with that, because you want to know what's been most successful at the end of the year. Was it from that trade show that you did? Was it from that email blast that you put out on your website to sign up for mugs? What was it that got you the opportunity that year? So we would give you a file that you would upload into your CRM system. And it is also extremely important to know where that data has come from, because most data is licensed on 12 months. So your data is licensed to you for 12 months, and you're expected to know where that data has come from and the compliance behind that. So that kind of leads.
This is all GDPR, is it? We were talking about this last night, weren't we? And this is where people get scared, I think. This is where it's frightening.
So I don't want to scare people too much. And I am definitely not a compliance and GDPR expert by any means. But what I will say is understanding what's going on or where your data has come from is extremely important. If you've collected your data yourself, you need to verify, that data that from a GDPR perspective. If you are using a third party, I would without doubt be asking them to check their GDPR compliance, because you're taking that data from somebody else. So any data that we would supply to anybody, we without doubt make sure that we send over what's called a GDPR checklist, and we expect businesses to be able to comply with the compliance to be holding that data. I'll give you a little kind of scenario where what data you can keep and what you can't, and things like that. So if you were a company that targets HR businesses, let's say, and it's clear to the ICO that you target HR companies.
Sorry, can you just say what ICO? Can you just explain that?
Sorry, that's the governing board in regards to the GDPR. So they HR business, say you're an HR and you've got different HR contacts that you can clearly show that you have been targeting HR companies for the last 10 years of your business, let's say, or year, or that's your target market. And they came knocking on the door and they said, why have you got data that you're holding for shoemakers? And you're like, well, we don't. It's not really anything that we normally target. I don't know why we've got that data. Well, instantly, you shouldn't be having that data. If you can show that you've got a legitimate reason to be contacting that business, because let's take your cup example, they are existing customer who's got legitimate reason to be contacting them. So that's all good. You carry on. So all I would say on this is do your due diligence from a compliance and data protection and GDPR. They are starting to really crack down on breaches of the regulations. And you can pay, I think, up to 4% of your global turnover.
Which, if you're a big company, that's a lot of money.
I think maximum 20 million euros, I think it is. But
is it whatever's highest? So if it's
it's 4% of your annual global turnover, or 20 million, whichever is greater. I think is the actual. it is really important. You do not want them taking 4% of your annual global turnover just because you didn't check your data.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to sort of like pick up at this point, is that you do have different types of data. So if you've got a list, an existing list of data that is potentially customers that you've had and worked with since day one. Now, like my business is 9 years old. I know I've got customers on my list that I worked with in year one that maybe haven't worked with me again since. But I've held that data on file because I still hold their artwork on my archives. So if they wanted that artwork, I need to be able to give it them back. So that's a legitimate need for me to hold that data. So I'm comfortable with that. But if you've got a list that you've cultivated, if you're a bigger business than me, for example, you should really be looking at your list every 12 months and just cultivating the list. Really, if it's opted in data, and we'll come to that in a minute. If it's opted in data, it's important to make sure it is still relevant to yourself, to your business. So that is probably something we'll touch on later in the top tips. But cultivate your data annually, and then that leads me into the difference between opted in data, which is data you've collected yourself, and the data that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which I'll pass over back to you now.
So opted in is where they have agreed to be contacted by you as a business. So they already probably know you.
Yeah.
With cold data, most of that is what's called the legitimate interest I keep going on about, that we have as a business. So we actually have a call center in Sutton Coldfield. There's 70 guys sat up there making 10,000 dials a day into the database to confirm that all that information that we hold on that company is correct. So have we got the right senior decision maker, email addresses, phone numbers, all that information, which is great. There's not, I don't think there's any other data provider in the UK that actually calls into the database. So, that's one of our massive unique selling points there. So yeah, we take that data and we confirm all the information, and then we hold a pot of data. Now, that data has been verified within the last 12 months that all that information is relevant and up to date. And then obviously you can then draw down that data to use for email marketing, calling into the database. Data deteriorates by 30% year on year.
Yeah. People moving on in roles.
Yeah, well,
retiring.
moving on in roles, that job titles change by 60%.
Wow. Yeah.
So job titles, I think it's 60, and phone numbers by 40%. So if you're holding a database that you bought a data list 3-4 years ago, that's one of the biggest, you're going out to data that it's not just from a GDPR, ignoring all of that, from a understanding your target market again, you're taking all this time to outsource content to be drawn up, email marketing, design, whatever it is that you're doing, and then you're spending all that money on that lovely marketing, and then you're just sending it out to a dead list, pretty much, to be blunt. So one of the things we recommend that people do is an audit on their data. So we can pull the data in-house, we can run it against our live database, and we can then give you the file back with updated duplicates, gonaways, flagging any additional amendments or changes to that data. And then in some cases, you don't even need to purchase new data. You can just enhance what you've already got. So there are different ways to look at it. So we bring in data from prospecting, which is where we look at those types of things I've just spoken about, enhancements. And we can also bring in your customer data as well. So when we bring your customer data in, we can do a different type of profiling. That's where we can come back to you based on what do these job titles look like? What does their turnover look like? What does their company size look like? And that we can then get you a little picture that says, did you know that out of your 1,000 customers, 20,000 customers, 50 customers, this is what good looks like based on your success so far in the industry. Or this is not what success looks like, and we need to think outside the box. We need to find some other customers that meet your criteria that you could potentially work with, because a lot of businesses are thinking outside the box. I've been working with a hospitality company, and they do been holding events. They have still being very proactive and going out there, and they're doing online events. They just switched all of their things to these fantastic Zoom meetings online. So there's obviously I can't name drop the companies, but we've got two companies. One that went, we're furloughing all our staff.
Yep.
We're stopping, we're battling down the hatches, and we're stopping. And we've got another customer who went, right, what can we do? How can we think outside the box? What can we do differently?
Pivot.
And
Adapt.
yeah, adapt. And they went for it. Now, don't get me wrong, they still haven't had the best year they've ever had, but they're in a lot better position than the company that battled down the hatches and didn't do anything. And what I will say is it's really starting to ramp up. I've never been so busy. It is, people are starting to gear up to go for it for 2021. I think people feel that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they are starting to think, right, what is my plan for 2021? You know, no one's talking about what's my plan for February or March. They're talking about what's their plan for the year. And data holds a massive part of that. You know, understanding what opportunity is out there, especially with, as you can imagine, sadly, a lot of businesses have folded over the last 12 months as well.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is, like, you as a business, you've gone out, you've created your database, which is vast, but you are in a process of doing what we as small business, or, you know, business owners should be doing, which is cultivating our data annually. You're actually doing that as in your business, like, every day. You're constantly churning that data to make sure it's as up to date as it possibly can be. And then and ultimately, like, that is your product. Your database is your product, and you then effectively you're leasing that data out for 12 months at a time, or 6 months at a time, or however long the contract may be, for other businesses to come in and use that to best effect. Now, so say for example, I, you know, bought 3,000 records from you, that all match the criteria that I know fits with my demographic, that are the type of people that I want to sell to or try and sell to. So I've got 3,000 records and I've got them for 12 months. Okay. So of those three, we put them into a CRM system, we put it into an email list, and I've then got them to use to sell to. So I can do email marketing to them. I can, you know, look to connect with them on LinkedIn. I can, you know, use that data as best I can. So say, for example, at the end of 12 months, does the contract comes to an end, does that mean I can't contact those people again?
So what happens is if you have contacted that company and you are actively working and talking to somebody, that's your data.
Yeah.
So you have, I like kind of the analogy, someone explained it to me once. If I give you a record, and it's on a coat hanger, let's imagine, and I give you that record, and you add to that, you're adding conversation. I'm talking to John, so you're adding to your CRM system. I've spoken to John and he's done this, and we've managed, and I've signed him up to this, and I've sent him this, and I've got a relationship going. If I took my basic data away, would that hanger still stand up? Yeah, the answer is yes, because you're talking to them and you've got a good relationship going. If I looked at a record and you've literally sent an email to them and they've never replied, then that record doesn't stand up, and we would have to relicense that to you. So what we do is it's good practice as well to relicense your data every 12 months, because like we just spoke about, the, you know, deterioration of data. Why would you want to hold something that's not been rechecked and relicense back out with the correct information? So anything that you're actively working and you've got opportunity from, then fine, you can absolutely keep it. But we would expect to relicense the data back to you that you haven't got anywhere with. But what I would say, if you're doing the right things over the 12 months, you're doing email campaigns on a monthly basis, you've got a telesales guy picking up the phone and calling your click-throughs or your open rates, and they're actually calling data out of the pot, and you get to the end of the 12 months and there's still no opportunity and you're not talking to them, then maybe we need to look at your selection of data for the next 12 months, and we can change it up. So that's it.
Or look at your demographic, or look
Absolutely.
at your content, or look at what you said, you know, how you're approaching those people.
Yeah, I had someone the other day said to me, can you give me a case study on how great your data is? And I said, well, absolutely. There's always people, you know, saying, you know, thank you for your wonderful data. But how successful you are with that data really depends on how good your sales is and your marketing is. You know, I can say to you, yes, our data in particular has been called we're making 10,000 dials a day into the data, we're supplying you with a senior decision maker and so on. I can give you as cleaner data as we possibly can, but if you're not doing the right things with it, then that also comes down to you guys as well.
Yeah. Well, and this it's really interesting here. Like, there's so many things that you need to think about with data. It's such a vast topic, but so effectively, what the difference between opted-in data, which is collected yourself from customers, and licensed data, which is what you effectively sell. When you license 3,000 records over 12 months, if you get engagement with that data, that is effectively like turning it into an opted-in.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
So if you get 300 out of 3,000, 10%, they effectively move from your licensed data into your opted-in data. So then you keep them, retain them as customers that you have, and then a legitimate need to hold the data.
As long as you obviously make sure you keep in your bottom of your emails the opt-out option as well. That's obviously really important to make sure that you're showing that you're being given the option to opt out of your marketing. Absolutely. And that, interesting. I've known companies that have gone, right, let's purchase 20,000 records. Let's go. It meets all our criteria. So they've whittled it down, and they've really gone to town with email content, campaign planning, gone for it for the year, and gone, brilliant. We've managed to get 1,000 opportunities out of this. This really obviously kind of building up that pipeline out of that mass of data, and then it's come to year 2, and they've gone, well, actually, we've got a lot of opportunity to work for you this year that we managed to generate from, I wouldn't say you take your foot off the gas and not repurchase every year, because you're always going to want that pipeline growing. But there are businesses that, that go use, a big pot of data to have a real focused time. We do email broadcasting on behalf of our customers. So we send out between 15 million to 20 million emails per month on behalf of our customers to our database. And we do like broadcasting. So it's a very good way of going out to large pieces of data in mass. So templates can be built, landing pages can be built from a marketing perspective. So we can do that in-house, or you can outsource it to someone like you, Gareth. And and we can put these wonderful pieces of content together, and then you blast out to large numbers of data over a 3-month campaign or a 6-month campaign, which then generates click-through data, hopefully form fills, or they've downloaded a guide, or they've joined your webinar, or whatever that might look like. So there is, I think I'm just kind of adding to the things that you can do with data here. But there is endless opportunities. It's not just a case of going, well, can I just have the yellow pages data, please? Pass me that. But I remember years and years ago, I was 16. I worked for I walked down the local street in Portsmouth where I live, and there was a double glazing sales shop, Zenith Windows. And I knocked on the door and said, have you got any jobs? And they literally were like, in those days, it was like, yep, come in. And they sat me in the back room with a telephone, and they put the yellow pages in front of me and went, crack on. And that literally was how data was. It was, there's the book, no kind of thinking about their targets, who they could possibly go after. It was get someone on the phone, give them a book, and let them just keep dialing.
Spray and pray. You mentioned it earlier, like
spray and pray. Absolutely.
With the internet, we're so lucky to be able to glean the information that we can. So, like with a data set. So so you said it was a CSV Excel spreadsheet. So what sort of columns would you have in a typical data set?
So we hold hundreds and hundreds of different columns, because obviously all businesses have different insight or things that they're interested in. But you're talking your name, address, phone number, telephone number, email address, contacts. So we might have the marketing, the IT, the finance, the MD, the HR, the buyer, facilities. So all the contacts within the record, the turnover, the employee size, the market sector. So when it comes to market sectors, there's what's called SIC codes, SIC codes, which have been around for years and years and years. And personally, in my opinion, are extremely painful. They are so broad,
Yeah.
so broad,
Yeah.
and people can, want to target a particular type of business. They don't want to be going after, what you could type in hospitality, and hospitality, it can go
Vast,
from,
innit?
vast,
Yeah.
it's hugely vast. It doesn't,
Just to clarify what a SIC code is. So a SIC code is like a classification of a business type. I can't remember what the SIC stands
don't
for,
ask
but
me.
yeah, but that's what it. I mean, I don't even know what I've got two. I think I've got two SIC codes not listed against Design Fit, and yeah, they're very broad. Like, it's a hospitality, a great example, because hospitality could be a leisure club, it could be a restaurant, could be a pub, could be
A wedding venue,
yeah,
could be a balloon making place. It's like bouncy castle company,
yeah,
because
farms,
ridiculous.
yeah,
So we actually hold our own market sectors, a list of 2,400 market sectors, where we have broken the SIC codes down into, and actually the best way to describe it is like the Yellow Pages
yeah,
sectors, or the Thompson sectors, how you'd go, I want to go under accountants, I want to go under solicitors, I want to go under marketing people. We've got 2,400 of them. So we can be really granular when looking at the types of businesses that you've worked with. So when we talk about uploading the data and we look at your existing customers, we don't break it down by the SIC codes, which is ridiculous. We can actually break it down by, well, even down when we look at schools, we can break it down to sixth form, college, primary school, senior school, to that granular detail. Because I've been working with an apprenticeship company recently, and they do apprenticeships for young children, young adults, sorry, that are doing carpentry, and they're doing like plumbing and things like that. So they don't want the massive construction
mhm,
pile of data. They want the small 1 to 10 man band carpenters
yeah,
or plumbers, so we can really kind of focus down on what's actually needed from a market sector. So I've divulged there on what columns you have in the data set, but yeah, we can add pretty much anything. E-commerce flags, I've done one recently where the guy wants to know whether the business has an e-commerce website.
yeah,
We do flags on do they import and export goods? So
yeah,
a logistics company would be really interested in something like that.
yeah.
So there's lots of sometimes I have it where, can you tell me what phone provider they use? No.
Yeah, you can be very, very specific within reason, and oh, you tell me what shoe size they are. No,
Yeah.
don't be silly. Like
Yeah.
there's a point where you go, that's ridiculous, but you can learn a lot. But again, what's really key here, it all comes back to knowing your demographic. It's
Absolutely.
really important that.
And that's not just important for data, that's really important for your brand and your content and who you're going out to. And when people are sat in front of you, Gareth, and they're saying, oh, well, I want to do this, well, why do you want to do that? Who are you trying to bring to you? It's design as well, and data, any type of marketing. If you don't know what you're trying to target, then you're pretty lost.
yeah, you might as well stand in a room talking to yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
And I see it a lot on LinkedIn, and I've done it as well. I've been historically a little bit of scattergun approach on LinkedIn and Facebook, with my marketing, where I've been good quality content, put it out there, not a lot of engagement. Well, that's probably because I've not been historically being as specific with my demographic as I could be. So that's
It
something that
is
you've got to
easy to
address.
kind of go, yeah, I just push this out to all these people and let's just see what sticks. But I think that what that really comes down to is actually really knowing what your opportunity is. What you can't put together a forecast for the year of understanding how much you're going to sell that year and think about where you want to be at the end, your goals, where am I
Yeah.
going to be at the end of 2021, if you don't genuinely understand your opportunity.
Yeah, it's understanding like having a really good grasp on where you are as a business and understanding your brand. So having a really good customer value proposition. So if you know who your ideal customer is, and you walked into a lift one day, you got 60 seconds, you and them in a lift, and they say, oh, what do you do? That's your customer value proposition. What do you say to them? How do you answer that question? It's also good to understand what your unique selling proposition is, and your mission as a business. So there's 3 sentences there that will really help you understand where your opportunities lie. Because if you understand what you're peddling, then you can understand like the type of person who'll be buying, and then you can look to form a demographic, then you can look to form a data set, and then you can take your messaging out to that set of people. So
yeah, absolutely. And if that's a bit daunting to you, we do have tools that do that for you. That's what the audit is on your customers. So, you know, I did a audit the other day for a customer. They had 14,000 records sat in their CRM system that had been in there for years and years and years, and they hadn't looked at it. They'd been throwing out email campaigns to them on a regular basis, and 14,000 records, only 4,000 of those 14,000 were still live and trading, and which is absolutely crazy. So they've been, I said to them, I said, God, I said, they're purchasing some more data. So they're cleaning their 4,000 that are actually still live and trading, and they're topping up with some clean data. And I said to me, can you imagine what their email marketing stats are going to look like compared to what they previously were, taking that time to write content and sending out those emails? That's a lot of time, and when the boss man's turning around going, well, you've got 14,000 opportunities in your CRM system. Why have you only generated? No, you haven't. It's
yeah.
That's not really there.
The other thing to think about on that as well, if you've got 14,000, even like in MailChimp, which is like the most widely used sort of email client, like bulk emailer, you're going to be paying to send 14,000 emails, and only 4,000 are getting through.
Yeah.
They're not, 10,000 emails are not being read, but you've paid to send them.
Yeah.
It's a waste of money and waste of time.
Waste of money, waste of time, waste of effort, waste of understanding your real opportunity, and the GDPR bit on the tickling on your shoulder as well of going out to data like that. Yeah. Lots of reasons to make sure you're on top of what your data set looks like.
Yeah, I think there's one thing to add in here. You just mentioned GDPR there. You need to be aware of what GDPR means and the impact it could have on your business. But the key thing really to remember is, if you are abusing your data, be very worried, because you will get caught out eventually. If you're not abusing your data, you've just neglected to cultivate your list, then you'll be able to give legitimate reasons why. If you're a small business, you've not got the manpower, it's understandable that you've not been able to be as consistent with your lists than larger organizations would be. We haven't all got 70 people in a call center doing that day in, day out. But as long as you're not abusing your data, GDPR shouldn't be a problem. You just need to be aware of it, and you need to do your very best to stay on top of your data. I think that's
absolutely,
that's the key,
and that is the key. You need to make sure that you are being due diligent and with it, and that's I can't. Every single business will have a different GDPR and compliance and legitimate reason to use the data. So I can't ever give advice on, this is what you need to do from a GDPR compliance, because it's all different. Everyone's legitimate reason to keep some piece of data is different to somebody else's. So sadly, you need to go and do that bit yourself. However, making sure that you're using a data provider that's all over their GDPR compliance will be a big tick in the box to help to keep you guys away from being fined 4% of your annual global turnover.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? That is a crazy number for sort of like larger businesses. That is going to put the spookers up.
There was one recently. It wasn't a massive company, and they had a telesales guy ringing out on some data that they had, and they hadn't been TPS'd or CTPS checked.
Yeah.
And they had a fine of £120,000.
So just tell us what the TP.
So it's telephone preference service.
Yeah.
So when you're at home and the phone ringing with double A salespeople and God knows what, you can actually put what's called telephone preference service on your phone line to prevent businesses from calling you. And they're not allowed to. They can be fined because you're saying, no, I'm on the preference service, don't call me. And you also get what's called CTPS, which is the corporate telephone preference subscribing.
Yeah.
So corporate lines can go on that as well. So if you are caught calling that type of data without, and again, there are programs online. Just go into Google and look for TPS, check my list of TPS data, please, before I send off this guy to start making 100 dials a day. Yeah, that's one of the flags as well, that we obviously flag on the data of your data set, that you shouldn't be calling this because they're on the TPS line. And the thing with that is, the TPS line, I could go on right now and register myself. So I might have not been on the list yesterday, but I'm on the list today.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that you need to check every single day, but if you haven't checked at all and you can't show that you've checked, just showing due diligence and being sensible with what you're doing.
So when you got your data, it's good that you mentioned the telephone preference service there, because a lot of people just automatically assume data is all about email marketing, but it's not, is it? You can use your licensed data can be used for email marketing, which is the obvious one. It could be used for text messaging. We all get text messages selling stuff.
Yeah.
It could be used for telesales campaigns.
Yeah, the telesales telesales. Go on. I was just saying, the telesales campaigns that's one of. To be fair, that's if you've got a guy sat and you've done out your email campaign and you're trying to generate people from a form fill perspective, following up on that data and making those calls from an email campaign I couldn't tell you how important that is. You do need to be following up. What's the point in sending out 1,000 emails? Because you're not going to get massive form fills. You're not. It's just not the way it works. Give you a few kind of statistics. If you send out 1,000 emails, you'd probably get a 10% open rate.
Yeah.
And then you don't 100 people, and then you'd only get 4% of those 100 people clicking. So you'd get about 4 people clicking out of 1,000. That's the realistics of it. So that's why you need to go out to good size numbers when you're email marketing. Sending out to 300 people on lists, it's just not going to cut it. You're not going to get the results that you want. But that, and then you hopefully would get some form fills out of that as well. You'd hope that people are going to engage in your content and they're going to fill the form out or join the webinar, whatever it may be. But I would expect your sales guy, or even yourself, or depending on the size of your business, to be following up. So if you've sent out 1,000 emails and you've had 100 opens and you've had 4 or 5 clicks on that campaign,
you've got 100 calls to make. That's what you're ultimately saying. You've got 100 calls to make, but 100 calls is a lot more manageable for smaller businesses than it is 1,000. But again, it all comes back to knowing that demographic, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you whittle down this criteria and so let's kind of run it through. So let's do your business, Gareth. You live in Salisbury. You've also got business up in lovely Lichfield, so you can probably travel anywhere from what corridor do you take up? Which way do you go up? A34? Yeah, up the A30.
Yeah, 34, M40.
Yeah, M40. Yeah. So I would be saying to you, right, would you take a customer, Gareth, anywhere on that drive? Of course you would, because it's a kind of makes logistically business sense. It's on the way. You might find someone in Oxford. Why would you not take a customer in Oxford? It's on the way. So we would look at your radius of a business between Lichfield and all the way down to Salisbury, and I could map out that route and that driving and that area that you would travel. I would also look at your existing customer base. You would probably know, Gareth, what type of businesses you've worked with well, because you've not got hundreds and thousands of customers. So you could say to me, actually, Vicky, I've done some really good work with construction businesses. I've done some good work with name one, Gareth.
Pharmacies. Do a lot of pharmacies.
Oh yeah, the pharmacies. Yeah. And you've got some really good case studies on them. So we could then take those market sectors. I would suggest for a business your size, we're probably not going to be looking at companies with more than 150 employees, 200 employees,
probably up to 50, to be honest.
50, yeah. Okay, so 50 employees, and that would give us a pot of data. We probably might even look at making sure they've got enough money in the bank as well to pay. And we can whittle that down to that lovely that lovely list and what that looks like. So let's say there's 10,000 businesses in that criteria. You could take that list of 10,000, and for you, Gareth, you're a one-man band. You're not going to have to, unless you're going to recruit a telesales girl to sit and start making calls, it's not going to happen. So again, every business is different and the criteria is different, but for you, that's a perfect little number that you can go, right, I'm going to upload that into my email platform, and I'm going to put a warm process in place. So the first email could be a brand awareness. This is who I am. This is what I offer. I'm Design Pit. I'm Fit Pit. I'm Social Pit. I'm this and a nice little brand piece.
Yeah.
And you'd warm that up. And it's not a case of just sending out 10,000 emails and going, I didn't get any leads. No one filled the form out. Yeah. It's not how it works. It's about nurturing that data over a 12-month period, hence why we license it for 12 months, so that you're starting to, by month 4, normally month 3, month 4, you'll start to see those people engaging and they'll start to see the brand, and they'll start to engage more. The open rates will increase. And you should, when you get that data and you get your clicks and your opens, one, I always recommend that you call them. I understand that not everyone has the time to do that, but then also going back out and retargeting the ones that have opened and clicked. So that's just email marketing. But it started with who am I targeting? And I know I keep coming back to that, but understanding that, and not just purchasing a load of data, which could be made up of anything, is just is not good practice. And another little story. Company's house data. We are market location, but we are also market location secure. We are owned by the 118 group. We also own Thompson Local, Cardwell Marketing, Intelligence. I can't think of the other name of the company. Come to me. But we are built up of 8 different businesses. But we still have the same sales director, same head of finance, the same CEO. But in Company's House, we come up as 8 different businesses. We're not 8 different businesses at all. We're one. So we're actually only one marketable business. So anyone can go in and pull Company's House data. And but do you want to look like you're going after 8 opportunities, or do you want the one realistic opportunity? And that's the difference between quality data and just pulling some list off from Company's House or something like that.
So effectively what we're saying is, your license data is, you can be very specific with your demographic. So data always starts with demographic. Don't spray and pray, but be consistent with your messages. Really understand what you're selling, so you can sell it effectively with your marketing campaigns and get it right, basically, to drive that engagement and get as many opt-ins as you possibly can. That is effectively a process that we've sort of set here, aren't we?
You've literally just said my top tips, Gareth. So I've obviously explained it well. But that is it. That is literally it. Making sure the demographic is correct, making sure that you're being compliant with that data, and that you're thinking about the plan for 2021.
Yeah, it's all thinking ahead, isn't it? It's all looking ahead.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's brilliant. I think there's been a lot to take away from this, and I'll make sure I get as much information into the show notes as possible. Can I share your details in those notes as well?
Absolutely. And then if anyone does have any questions around it, if I can help, if you're thinking, oh my God, I've got this list and I'm now freaking out after everything Vicky's just said, feel free to call me or message me. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Gareth put my details in the bottom there, so if there is anything that I can help with, even if it's just answering a few questions for you, please feel free to shout at me.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Vicky. Appreciate you coming on. And I'll make sure I get as much information into those notes as I can. And please do search for Vicky on LinkedIn. She's quite prominent on there. So thanks very much for your time, mate.
Brilliant.
And,
no problem.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Right. Take care. Bye. Bye.